A very warm welcome to all of you on Fusion Fiction. This is your host, Madhulika Ra Chauhan, and you are listening to a brand new episode of Season 2. So tell me, have you ever been on a bus ride where the ordinary world suddenly feels extraordinary? Where a simple encounter with a stranger or a street vendor sparks something intriguing? Join me as we step into the world of a bus ride where reality and illusion collide. This is the vendor's pitch. The vendor's pitch. This story begins when I was still traveling by bus every week from my workplace to my hometown. It was the same routine, same stoppage, same vendors. Only the passengers were different each time. One vendor that caught my attention was the plastic table cover seller. He offered a 12 by 12 sheets, each priced at rupees 10, showcasing four designs. One with the large red roses, another with the world map. He'd say this one can be used as a wall for teaching kids about geography. A third one with an amber colored setting sun, and a fourth with lush trees. He ruffled the covers, tried to tear them, even scrubbed them intensely to demonstrate their durability. Sweat would trickle down his temples, veins bulging in his throat, as he shouted his sales pitch with a kind of fervor you rarely see in a tired grey city morning. I often wondered what fueled his excitement. On good days, he'd sell 4 or 5 sheets and then happily hop off at the next stop. Then there was the fruit vendor, selling oranges in winter and cucumbers in summer. More often than not, the cucumbers were sure shot hit. But the one who intrigued me the most was the coal seller. He'd get on near the railway crossing, always wearing a slim cut shirt neatly tucked into his trousers and his hair oiled to perfection. He would walk down the aisle with an almost ceremonial grace and begin his sales pitch in a rehearsed, rhythmic cadence. Ladies and gentlemen, for all those suffering from cataracts, eye infections, glaucoma, or eye fatigue, try this magical coal. By our very own Peer Baba. Baba, whose hands are blessed with magic, a shafa. You can cure even the rarest of ailments. This coal, he claimed, contained ingredients like charcoal from rare sources, blue parrot's beak, owl's wings, potash alum, tiger's dry eyes, and, most importantly, Baba's prayers, which could dispel the vilest of conditions. Every time the passengers, tired from the morning commute, would listen with varying degrees of amusement. But despite his constant claims, I never saw a single taker for the magical surma. One, one foggy winter morning, a woman in her 70s entered the bus. She was dressed in a black ankle length skirt, a fully buttoned up top, and a black shawl with a mirror work on the edges. Her face was deeply lined with age, and the rim of her cornea had turned a cloudy grey. Are Namakul, help me, she shouted, her voice sharp with an agitation of age. The conductor, with a kind of practical care I had seen many times before, helped her climb the metal stairs of the bus. Once she settled, she eyed the space next to me and without hesitation sat down, her hands deftly straightening the shawl around her shoulders and winding it around her head. She had the subtle air of someone who had seen much and was never afraid to assert her space. Oh ho, move a little, she jabbed at me, her voice demanding, clearly unbothered by the fact that she had stepped on my feet in the process. I let out a sigh, but shifted slightly, giving her the space she wanted. The bus jolted to life and she fumbled for her purse, counting the money she had taken out for the ticket with methodical precision before placing it securely in a zipper pouch near her chest. Her eyes darted suspiciously towards me. Perhaps she thought I looked like a threat, someone who might try to snatch away her hard earned cash. I didn't mind the suspicion. It was a practical kind of wariness earned from years of surviving city life. A few kilometers down the road, the orange vendor entered, hawking his fruits with the usual 2 for 5 pitch. The woman called to him, her voice demanding his attention. Can I get a taste of one of the oranges? The boy, barely a teenager with a dark shadow of a new mustache on his upper lip, smiled nervously. Nahi, I can't give you a taste. All my oranges will be gone if I let everyone try. Don't worry, she coaxed, her voice softening with the tone of someone who had seen enough seasons to know how to twist a situation in her favor. Allah will give you more. Eventually, the boy relented and peeled an orange for her. She tasted it and immediately declared, So sweet. The boy beamed, proud of his produce. Now bite, he urged, offering 2 fresh oranges. Nahi, nahi, no, she said, waving him off. I like sour ones. These are too sweet. Her laughter, soft and shivery, filled the bus. The boy's face fell as he walked away, taking his peeled slice with him. The plastic table cover vendor entered with his usual fervor, shaking out the vibrant sheets as he demonstrated their durability. His, hand, his hands ruffled the covers, attempting to tear them with exaggerated care, his voice booming over the low hum of the bus. But when the elderly woman, unimpressed, scratched at the surface to test the claims, the vendor's smile faltered. It's only 10 rupees, not 100, he said with a forced cheer, but his words fell flat. She scoffed, her skepticism sharp as she dismissed his pitch. Plastic hai, she muttered, waving him off. It will melt in fire. Do you want to buy or you're just trying to waste my time? You talk you talk as if I'm selling diamonds. The woman looked at him as if ready to stab him. Defeated, the vendor quickly exited, his day's work wasted on her scorn. Plastic bek raha hai, and see his attitude. She looked around, gathering supporters for her view. You're right, Bibi, voiced another passenger who had been watching the conversation intently. The coal vendor appeared near the railway crossing, his routine as smooth as ever. He He hawked his magical surma, claiming it could cure ailments with the blessings of Baba's prayers and bizarre ingredients like owl's wing and blue parrot's beak. The passengers, weary from their commute, half listened to his tall claims. The elderly woman, sitting quietly until then, raised her voice. Let me try this magical surma of yours. It's free, yes? With practiced ease, the vendor handed her the glass applicator, grinning as she applied the dark coal to her eyes. The passengers watched her in deft silence, waiting for Bibi's verdict. There, feel the blessing? The vendor said with a grin. The woman opened her eyes, flickering them a little. She was quiet at first, and then nodded her head in agreement. But as soon as she blinked, pain shot through her, and her voice cracked with rage. What have you done to me, you fraud? She cried out, her voice harsh with panic. What have you done to me? Her eyes in torrents, blurring her vision. The vendor stepped back, his smile faltered as he tried to reassure her, but it was too late. May you never be seen again, Shaitan ki aulad, she spat. How dare you play with people's eyes with your filthy lies? The bus passengers, taken aback, watched as the woman's laughter turned into bitter sobs, her hands pressing against her face. The coal vendor stumbled towards the door, fumbling with his belongings, his hands trembling. There was a moment of silence, thick with disbelief, before he quickly pushed through the door and stepped out in the foggy morning air. The bus hummed on, the tires grinding against the asphalt as the woman's sobs slowly subsided. She pressed the corners of her shawl to her face, wiping away the tears that still pooled in her eyes. For a moment, the only sounds were the soft murmur of the engine and the occasional cough of a passenger. The woman didn't seem to care. She sat back, her head tilted slightly to the side, as if still feeling the burn from the coal. Her hands, once rigid with anger, now rested calmly on her lap. She looked out the window, the reflections of the passing trees catching her gaze, her eyes distant as though she had momentarily forgotten where she was. The other passengers, who had been watching the scene unfold in terse silence, began to stir. The woman's outburst had broken the quiet monotony of the bus ride, and now a low murmur rippled through the crowd. That vendor must have really messed it up, muttered one man to his neighbor, shaking his head. Serves him right, replied the woman, sitting across the aisle. Who sells that kind of junk to people? Some things aren't meant to be played with. A couple of passengers nodded in agreement, while others seemed to be unsure whether to sympathize with the vendor or with the woman. The air was thick with quiet judgments, a momentary unity born from the shared drama. But the elderly woman remained unfazed. She glanced around the bus, as though daring anyone to speak out of turn. No one did. I stood up to leave, my usual stop approaching. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I should say something. She caught my eye, a flicker of recognition passing between us. Though no words were exchanged, her gaze was not unkind, but there was an imperviousness in it that made it clear that she had no interest in small talk. As I stepped off the bus, the day felt a little quieter. The routine of the commute restored as I continued to travel on the same route. Oh, and in case you're still wondering, I didn't see the coal vendor again. This is Madhulika Ra Chauhan reminding you to keep your eyes wide open because the best stories are the ones you don't see coming. Reach out to me on social media and write to me at madhulikarachauhan@gmail.com. I'd love to hear your stories too. And don't forget to subscribe to Fusion Fiction to hear more stories. Have fun and until we meet again. This is Madhulika Ra Chauhan and you are listening to Fusion Fiction.